The thing about being underestimated for years is that eventually it stops feeling personal. It's just tradition, especially at family holidays. At least, that's what I told myself as I walked up the long gravel driveway to my aunt's farmhouse in upstate Vermont, where we always held Thanksgiving. I'm Elise Harding, though to my family I'm just Ellie, the artsy one who never quite lived up to the Harding name. I'm 39 now, and the wool coat I wore was custom from Milan. But it was gray, understated, deliberately forgettable. No need to startle the flock. Not yet. Well, look who remembered where we live. My cousin Blake leaned against the porch railing, his smirk as smug as ever. Ellie, the Etsy queen, he added, to a round of chuckles. I smiled politely, thinking of the Q4 reports waiting on my desk back in the city. They had no idea what kind of bombshell today would bring. Inside it was the usual roll call, Aunt Lydia dishing out critiques like gravy, my brother Michael bragging about his finance job, Blake and his sister Kara both still working for the family lumber business like it was a royal lineage. Elise, really? Aunt Lydia wrinkled her nose. That coat looks like something from a rummage bin. Don't you run a little shop or something? Still selling second-hand scarves? Kara chimed in, sipping cider like it was champagne. Before I could respond, my assistant Mia walked in from the kitchen, carrying a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Blake raised an eyebrow. Who's she? My assistant, I said. A pause, an awkward silence. You have an assistant? Kara asked, genuinely confused. Mia set the tray down and handed me my phone. Mr. Harding, your legal team just confirmed the acquisition. You now own full rights to the Harding Timberland brand name. Dead silence. Blake paled. I took a sip of wine. Oh, right. I forgot to mention. I bought the company. Happy Thanksgiving. That's success, I thought, taking a sip of Pinot Noir to hide the smirk tugging at my lips. The so-called Harding way had driven their legacy straight into a ditch. While they were busy promoting cousins and clinging to outdated strategies, I'd built an empire quietly, brick by digital brick. Speaking of success, Kara piped up, practically vibrating in her seat. Wait until you hear our big news. We're expanding, she announced, her voice practically echoing off the rustic dining room beams. Harding Timberland is opening 3 new plants next year. Uncle Henry is even floating the idea of going public. I nearly choked on my wine. They were planning an expansion? When I knew from court filings that their contractors hadn't been paid in 90 days? When a lien had just been filed on their central mill? That's ambitious, I said mildly. Of course you wouldn't understand, Uncle Henry added, not even bothering to mask the condescension. Business strategy isn't exactly your thing, Ellie. It takes more than flipping handbags online to run a real company. Laughter rippled through the room. Ah, yes. Ellie, the family eccentric. The one who walked away from Harding Timberland 7 years ago when they'd offered her a starting position in the warehouse. To learn the ropes, they'd said. Remember when she suggested we explore e-commerce? Blake smirked. She said the market was shifting. Or when she wanted to invest in that luxury resale platform? Kara chimed in. What was it called? Eclipse something? Eclipse Luxury Group, I replied softly. That's it, Kara snorted. God, imagine if we'd listened to her. We'd probably be bankrupt by now. Blake added with a grin. My phone buzzed, once in my pocket. I didn't need to check. I already knew. The Harding Timberland bankruptcy filing had hit the wire, right on schedule. Dinner's ready, Aunt Lydia called, ushering everyone toward the long farmhouse table. We filed in, name cards marking our assigned seats. Ara, of course, sat beside Uncle Henry at the head. I was tucked down by the fireplace between Cousin Todd and Great-Aunt Ruth, almost in exile. So, Elise, Aunt Lydia said, ladling out stuffing. Have you considered looking for a real job? I hear the post office is hiring. Another round of laughter. I speared a piece of turkey, remembering the day I'd submitted a full modernization proposal, backed by my MBA thesis and 2 years of logistics experience. And Uncle Henry had skimmed it, then folded his hands. The warehouse will be good for you, he'd said. And now the warehouse belonged to me. Teach you humility, Uncle Henry had said, the day I turned down their offer to work the warehouse floor. Instead, I'd walked away. I sold my small block of Harding Timberland shares back to the family for a fraction of their supposed value, shares that would be worth less than kindling by morning. With that cash, I invested in a rising but obscure luxury resale platform called Eclipse. Today, Eclipse Luxury Group owns 30 designer boutiques, 6 thriving online platforms, and, as of this morning, its first full-scale manufacturing subsidiary. I set down my fork and looked around the table. Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you all about business. My mother groaned softly. Not this again, Elise. Yes, Kara scoffed. Because your last great business tip worked out so well? Didn't that Eclipse company you loved get bought out or something? It did, I replied with a small nod. See, she said, turning to Uncle Henry with triumph in her voice. Thank God we didn't listen to her. My phone buzzed again. This time I pulled it from my coat pocket and tapped the screen, making sure they all saw it. Everything okay? My father asked, irritated. Trouble with your little side hustle? No, I said, setting my phone down beside my plate. Just confirming that Harding Timberland's bankruptcy has been approved by the court. Silence. Kara's fork slipped from her fingers and clinked onto her plate. What did you just say? Uncle Henry asked, his voice suddenly small. Your bankruptcy filing, I said, calmly buttering a roll. Chapter 11, just approved. Though with your current liabilities, I imagine it'll be converted to Chapter 7 by next quarter. That's not possible, Blake said, panic rising in his voice. How would you even know that? I smiled. Oh, I didn't tell you? I reached slowly into the modest handbag they'd all dismissed when I arrived, the one they assumed was a knockoff. Eclipse was acquired by Morgan Holdings. I paused, then laid the final card on the table. And Morgan Holdings is mine. The silence was deafening. My father's face had gone ghostly pale. Kara looked like she'd swallowed glass. You're lying, Uncle Henry croaked. This is a joke. It's not, I said, pulling a manila folder from my bag and laying it in the center of the table. Here's the debt purchase agreement. I own every lien, every outstanding loan, every note your company couldn't pay back. If you've been quietly building something while they doubted you, this story is for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what Elise does next. Because the best part of the reckoning is still to come. Would you like to see it? I asked, my voice calm, almost amused. I slid the folder open and spread the documents across the linen tablecloth, right between the cranberry sauce and the gravy boat. The bankruptcy filing, the debt purchase agreements, the creditor ledger. This one's my favorite. I tapped a page with my neatly manicured finger. A list of your outstanding obligations. I looked directly at Uncle Henry. Morgan Holdings now owns 82% of your total debt. That's impossible, Kara whispered, her face pale. You run a resale website. I actually laughed then. I couldn't help it. Is that really what you've told yourselves I've been doing these past 5 years? I asked, looking around at their stunned faces. While you were all busy mocking my little online shop, I built Eclipse Luxury Group into a $3,200,000,000 0-cents company. 3 points, Blake coughed, nearly dropping his wine glass. Give or take a few million, I shrugged. It's been a solid quarter. My father finally found his voice, but it shook with tightly restrained fury. If this is true, if you really own our debt, why? He asked. Why would you do this to your own family? I set my wineglass down deliberately. You mean the family that told me I was lucky to be offered a warehouse job after finishing my MBA? I said. The family that laughed at every digital strategy I proposed? The one that calls me a failure in front of strangers every single holiday? Silence. Just then, my phone buzzed. Right on cue. Excuse me, I said smoothly, standing. That's probably my assistant with the final paperwork. I walked into the hallway, the hardwood floor creaking slightly under my heels. From behind the dining room door, I could hear the panic breaking loose. As she's bluffing, check the accounts. Call the lawyers now. I smiled as I picked up the call. Yes, Jennifer. Everything's ready, Miss Harding, she said. The bankruptcy has been processed, and the acquisition documents are complete. Should I dispatch the team? Give it 5 minutes, I replied. Let them digest the news first. When I returned, they were huddled around Uncle Henry's phone, eyes wide as they scrolled through urgent emails and court filings. Well, I said, taking my seat again, shall we discuss next steps? My team will be here shortly with the acquisition proposals. Team, my mother repeated, her voice almost inaudible. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I glanced at my watch. Right on time. That would be my legal and financial advisors, I said pleasantly. I hope you don't mind if they join us for dessert. My father stood, face red. Now wait just a minute, Elise. Actually, no, I interrupted. You're bankrupt. You've defaulted on $142 million, 0 cents in loans. Loans that I now control. So you have exactly 2 choices. Work with me on an orderly restructuring and sale, I said evenly, or I force liquidation first thing Monday morning. Chiara burst into tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks. But the expansion plans, the new mills, were never going to happen, I finished for her. Harding Timberland has been insolvent for months. Did any of you actually read the financial reports? Or were you too busy handing out titles and planning cocktail parties to notice you were bleeding cash? At that moment, Jennifer entered with the rest of my team, 3 attorneys and 2 financial advisors, all in sleek navy suits, each holding a leather briefcase. The contrast between their calm professionalism and my family's stunned expressions was, frankly, delicious. Ms. Harding, one of the attorneys greeted me with a polite nod. Shall we begin? Please, I said, motioning toward the dessert plates my mother had just laid out. Help yourselves to some pumpkin pie while we work. My mother's recipe is excellent. For the next 2 hours, we reviewed the full picture, the debt structure, the missed payments, the looming defaults, and my proposed acquisition terms. I'd spent almost a year preparing this, quietly acquiring their debt through various shell companies, waiting as they ignored the warning signs and doubled down on bad decisions. This is thorough, Uncle Henry finally said, reluctantly flipping through the restructuring binder. Unlike some people, I replied with a hint of a smile, I actually understand business strategy. By the time we were done, Harding Timberland was no longer theirs in anything but name, and even that would soon change. I'd offered terms that were generous, given the circumstances, but no one at that table was left uncertain about who controlled the future now. As my team packed up their documents, I stood and addressed the room. Mo, I said. Kara, Blake, Todd, your positions are being eliminated. Please clear out your offices by Monday. You're firing us, Cairo shrieked. We're your family. No, I replied coolly. I'm firing underqualified managers who were promoted through nepotism. But if it helps, I hear the post office is hiring. I smoothed the front of my simple gray dress. Plain by choice, a symbol of restraint, not lack. Thank you for dinner, Mom, I said. The turkey was excellent, even if we didn't quite get to dessert. Elise, my father's voice cracked as I turned to leave. Was all of this just revenge? I looked back at the table, at the stunned faces, the half-eaten food, the folder still lying open like a wound. No, Dad, I said, this was business. I paused at the door. The revenge, that's just a bonus. As I walked out to the driveway, I heard Kara wailing about losing her house, her Pilates instructor, her club membership. Blake shouted something about suing me, but they had nothing left to fight with. I slid into the black S-Class Mercedes I'd leased specifically for today. As I pulled away, I caught them in the rearview mirror, clustered at the window, watching me leave. Then my phone buzzed one final time, a message from Jennifer. Congratulations, Ms. Harding. The acquisition announcement is queued for Monday morning. Jennifer's message lit up my phone just as I merged onto the highway, the farmhouse and its stunned occupants shrinking behind me. I smiled as I imagined how different next Thanksgiving would be. Would they still call me the family embarrassment when I owned their company? Would they still smirk about my little online thing when they were all sending out resumes? Somehow, I doubted it. 1 week later, Harding Timberland was officially renamed Eclipse Manufacturing, now the latest addition to the Eclipse Luxury Group portfolio. I preserved the company's original tree ring logo, designed decades ago by my grandfather, but added one subtle change: a small eclipse symbol nestled into the roots. A quiet, permanent reminder that the family failure had eclipsed them all. Kara eventually found a job at a local department store. Not Walmart, but not far off. Blake and Todd left Vermont entirely, their reputations scorched by the collapse. Last I heard, Blake was managing inventory in Arizona. Uncle Henry retired, in silence, his legacy replaced by a footnote in the acquisition documents. My father called once. About a month later, he left a voicemail. It began with, "I was wrong about you," and ended with, "Would you consider bringing me on as a consultant?" I had my assistant reply with the same polite rejection letter we use for all unsuccessful applicants. That Thanksgiving, I didn't return to the farmhouse. I was in Millinaw closing another deal, too busy running my empire, including the company that had once defined my family's pride. But I did send a card. One to each of them, embossed with the Eclipse Manufacturing logo. Inside, a short note. Thankful for all the lessons you taught me about real business. Hope you're enjoying your real jobs. Sometimes, success is the best revenge. Sometimes, the one they laughed at becomes the one they answer to. And sometimes, karma wears heels and arrives with a side of pumpkin pie. If you've ever been the one they whispered about at family gatherings, the one dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated, then you know what it feels like to carry silent ambition in a room full of loud egos. I didn't fight back with shouting matches or dramatic exits. I built quietly, steadily, behind the scenes, and now, I stand not in spite of their doubt, but because of it. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, share your own story. Tell me, when did you stop waiting for their approval and start writing your own ending? To everyone watching this who feels stuck at the bottom of someone else's ladder, let me say this: you don't have to climb their ladder. You can build your own. You can fail in private, succeed in silence, and return only when you're ready to walk in as the one who owns the building. You don't owe anyone your process, only your results. And when those results speak for themselves, let them. If you believe in second chances, silent strength, and poetic justice, subscribe, not just for me, but for every story like mine. Because we are many, and our voices matter. Not all success is loud. Some of it sounds like a quiet knock on a boardroom door. Some of it tastes like cold turkey and warm revenge. And sometimes, success means finally hearing your own voice over everyone else's. Thank you for listening to mine. Let's keep this conversation going, because no one gets to define your worth but you.